Okay. Right now, I'll turn it off.
Good evening. It's 5 p.m. and the regular session of the Planning Commission of the City of Lancaster will please come to order. Additionally, the Lancaster Major LC Citizens Oversight Committee will also come to order. This is a special joint meeting for the two entities. Would you call the roll, please?
Roll call for Planning Commission. Chairman Vos,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Harvey,
Present?
Commissioner Burden,
Present.
Commissioner Derryberry,
Here.
Commissioner Moore,
Present.
Commissioner Tufts,
Present.
Commissioner Underwood.
Here.
Roll call for Measure LC Citizens Oversight Committee. Chairman Vos,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Harvey,
Present.
Committee Member Burden,
Present.
Committee Member Derryberry,
Here.
Committee Member Yeager. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And it's good to see all of you. Tonight, the invocation tonight will be offered by Commissioner Burden, and the pledge will be led by Commissioner Moore, who we are so happy to see here tonight. It's been a long time since he's joined us due to illness, and we're glad he's recovered and back with us. So if you'd all please stand.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this time for us to come together in service of our great city. We thank you for all those who are in attendance. We thank you for Commissioner Moore returning today. I pray that everyone had a great weekend with their families and celebrating Mother's Day. I pray, Lord God, that you will clear all hearts and minds and allow us to make decisions justly and well for our great city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Turn around and face the flag. We're going to say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You are one tough Marine.
Yes. Yes, man. I fought back to get here.
Well, we're represented tonight by the Air Force, by the Marine Corps, by the Army. Anyone else that I know of? No. Tonight, we have two items on our action item agenda for the Planning Commission. And then we have a presentation by the city attorney on the commission and committee ethics training. So the Planning Commission action, or the Planning Commission tonight would be appropriate then to consider comments from the floor, if there are any speakers here tonight, to address us relative to any items on the agenda for the Planning Commission. There doesn't appear to be anyone in the audience tonight. All right. We received one piece of correspondence, I believe. Is that correct, on item number 3, which is somewhere in the packet? Right, that's on item number 3, agreeing to the recommended action as recommended by staff. That's the only correspondence we have that I'm aware of. All right then, thank you. So our first action item tonight is the minutes of the meeting of April 17th, 2023. May I have a motion, please?
I put forward the motion for the approval of minutes for the regular meeting of April 17th, 2023.
Thank you. Have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, then please vote. Oh, hang on a minute.
Sorry, one moment. You can vote now. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Please forgive me one more time.
One more time, huh? All right. All right, everyone's voted. Motion's passes 6 with 1 abstention, 6 yeses with 1 abstention. All right, then, we have a continued public hearing from the previous meeting, so without objection, that hearing is still open. The action item before us is tentative track map number 74965, modification and conditional use permit 21-03. And I believe Ms. Swain's a presenter on this.
Correct, and this is the Housing Authority item.
Yes. As I am considered the applicant, I'll have to recuse myself. I'll step out just a moment.
All right, thank you. So for the record, Vice Chair is leaving the dais. All right then, Ms. Swain.
Okay, Chairman Vos and members of the commission, before you tonight is an extension for TTM 74965 and CUP number 2103, located at the southwest corner of Avenue Y and Sierra Highway. On December 18th, 2017, the Planning Commission approved conditional use permit 1726 and the tentative track map. Subsequent to the original approval, it was determined that the housing needs of the community had changed and a new application was submitted on the project site. This commission approved that application on April 19th, 2021. The applicant is currently in building plan check and has requested all 3 of their 1-year extensions, making the expiration date of this project April 19th, 2026. Staff is recommending approval of the extension, and I can answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments on this item? No public speakers on this, right? All right, then, if there's nothing further, we'll close the public hearing without objection. Consider a motion.
I'll put forward the motion to adopt resolution number 2309, granting a 3-year extension until April 19th, 2026 for TTM number 74965, modification and CPU number 21-03.
Second.
All right, thank you. All right, then, if there's nothing further, it's been moved and seconded. So, please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Vice Chair Harvey is recused on this matter. So it's approved. Welcome back. Next item is a new public hearing on tentative track map number 82208. It's also a request for an extension, so without objection, the public hearing is open on this item. Ms. Alvarado is the presenter. Do we have any speakers tonight on this? No?
No speakers.
All right, thank you. Ms. Alvarado?
Good evening, Chairman Vos and members of the Planning Commission. This next item we have before you is tentative track map 82208's extension 23-004. It is a request for all 3 1-year extensions for the previously approved tentative track map. The original approval date was for May 17th of 2021 with an expiration of May 17th of 2023. The applicant has stated they need additional time to process and complete the final map and associated improvement plans. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2311, granting a 3-year time extension to May 17th of 2026 for tentative tract map 82208, subdivision of 75 single-family residential lots in the R7000 zone. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. One question, I notice on this recommendation as printed on our agenda, and the previous one calls out the environmental review posting and comment period and so forth. Is that something new that we're adding to the agendas that we haven't had before?
Yes, it is. It is a new law that requires for agendas to have the environmental CEQA documentation listed on the agendas when you are in fact taking action on a CEQA item.
So are we obliged then to read that into the motion, or is it assumed that it's a part of the motion?
It's assumed that it's part of
If
the
I-
motion.
If I may address this, the case that required
Well-
this has now been depublished by the California Supreme Court, so we will no longer have to do this going forward.
Okay, I didn't hear that, and I'm not sure who's talking.
Forgive me, I misspoke. That was Allison Burns, who is
Oh.
also on the call. She
Oh.
just confirmed that moving forward, this will no longer be applicable. So you will not see this anymore. So forget it. Forget everything we just talked about.
Okay. So, yes, we do live in a state of confusion. That's not a political comment, though, however. Well, maybe. So, okay. So it's been moved and seconded, no further comments from anyone. So we'll close the public hearing without objection, consider a motion.
No, sorry.
What,
It has not been moved or seconded as of yet.
hadn't it? Oh, sorry.
But if you're offering,
Well, yeah, let's have a motion on this then, since I got confused again.
it's all good. I move to adopt resolution number 2311, granting a 3-year extension to May 17th, 2026 for TTM number 82208, a subdivision of 75 single-family residential lots in the R7000 zone.
Thank you,
I second.
thank you. All right then, it's now been moved and seconded. There are no further comments. We'll close the public hearing and consider a motion, or consider a vote. Seven yeses. All right then. So we have a presentation tonight from our city attorney, Ms. Burns, who's on a video somewhere. There you are.
Yes. Hello.
Chairman Vos, may I interrupt before we get into that, please?
Sure.
I just wanted to, just for the sake of who's who on the call, Ms. Corbett is also on the call, and she would like to say a few words before we move on to the next item, if that's okay.
All right.
Thank you, Chairman Vos. Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Moore, it's delightful to see you. I'm so glad that you're back. It's wonderful news. I just wanted to let you all know that tonight is my last meeting as Counsel for Planning Commission with Ms. De La Cruz's promotion to Director of Community Development, and with the significant number of big development projects we have in the pipeline. It seemed like now was the appropriate time for Ms. De La Cruz to retain counsel that specializes in land use. I can assure you, as a code enforcement attorney, that is not me. So this is the time to make this change. I did just want to take a moment to thank you for all the years that you've allowed me to work with you. It's been a genuine privilege and a pleasure, and I wish you individually and as a commission continued success. You know where to find me if you want to grab lunch or a glass of wine. Don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll pass it over to Allison. Thank you all.
And just before we pass it over to Allison, I would also like to introduce Mr. David King, who is also on the call. He is with Best and Krieger, and he, in fact, specializes in land use and CEQA and all of those other components that we normally deal with in our shop. And
Very
this
good.
is
Well, thank
this
you,
is
Ms.
him.
Corbett. And It's certainly been a pleasure working with you for these many years. I know you started when you were a mere child. I was much older, but we wish you well in your next assignment.
Thank you so much.
All right, so now may we move to the ethics training, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Allison Burns. I'm the city attorney, and I've been asked to give you an ethics training tonight on the various duties and responsibilities of commissioners and committee members. So without further ado, let me go ahead and see if I can share my screen and get my PowerPoint up. We're going to now watch me try and do technical things. I think I've done it. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so we're going to be talking about duties and responsibilities and ethical obligations tonight. You're trying to advance there we go. So the topics we're going to cover is ethics training, conflicts of interest, including financial conflicts of interest under the Political Reform Act, incompatible activities in offices, and common law conflicts. And then I'll briefly touch on the Brown Act and Public Records Act just for your information and edification. So starting with ethics training. Ethics training is required if you receive any form of compensation or reimbursement from the city. The requirement is to do 2 hours of training every 2 years and take your first training within 1 year of taking office. The trainings are available through the Fair Political Practices Commission's website at no charge. If you complete the training through their website, they will email you a certificate showing you have completed the training, and you can provide that to the city clerk's office. Otherwise, they will ring you to make sure that you have completed your ethics training. No further ado, I will move on to conflicts of interest, which is the primary topic we want to talk about tonight. So the primary question that folks have with regard to conflicts of interest or ethics training is financial conflicts of interest under Government Code Section 87100 and following. And there's a complicated but important 8-step test to determine if an individual has a conflict of interest. The first question is the individual a public official? I can answer that question for all of you. You are. The second is, are you making a governmental decision? If a matter is coming before the Planning Commission for decision, Planning Commissioners, you're making a governmental decision. If an issue is coming before the Measure LC committee, then that would be a governmental decision if you were making a recommendation, Measure LC committee members. And the next topic, and this is where things get more interesting, is does the individual have one of the 6 qualifying types of economic interest? Those interests are investments in business entities of $2,000 or more, interests in real property of $2,000 or more, and located in or within 2 miles of the city's jurisdiction, sources of income of $500 or more within the 12 months prior to the decision in question, sources of gifts and their agents or intermediaries for a total of $250 or more in the 12 months prior to the decision.
Pardon me, Allison?
Position, yes.
I just had a quick question with regard to distance of a project. Did you say 2 miles?
Within 2 miles of the city's boundaries is do you have real property within the geographical jurisdiction? That if you own property within the city of Lancaster or within 2 miles of the city of Lancaster, that is a potential economic interest that could result in a conflict. We haven't gotten yet to the question of whether it would be a conflict. The question is it a financial interest?
Got it, understood. I think I was confused with regard to if they were a particular project and it were close to.
We'll get there.
Yeah, got it. Okay, thank you.
We'll get there. Okay. So I think I was on gifts. So gifts sources of gifts and their agents or intermediaries, aggregating $250 or more in the 12 months prior to the decision in question. Positions with business organizations, so for example, officer, director, employee, or any other business position, excluding nonprofits from which you do not receive compensation, and personal finances of the official and the official's family. So if it affects your and your family's finances, that would also be a potential economic interest. Then the next question is the interest of the public official directly or indirectly involved in the decision? So we're on topic 4 now. And that would be, for example, if your business with which you're employed had a contract that was coming before the city for consideration, that would be directly involved. If there was a decision being made that was located nearby to property you own, that would be an indirect involvement. Then the next question is, will the decision have a material financial effect on the official's economic interests? And I think that was Director Harvey who was speaking earlier. Commissioner Harvey who was speaking earlier, who was asking about distance. This is where the distance requirements come into play. And the question is, will the decision have a material financial effect on the official's economic interest? Materiality is presumed if the official's economic interest is directly involved. So, for example, if the company with which you are employed has a contract before the city, that is a direct economic interest, materiality is presumed. If a decision is coming before your entity, whether it's the committee or the commission, that is located nearby property you own but doesn't directly affect property you own, then the public official we must look at the applicable threshold for materiality to determine whether a conflict exists. To take a step back for just a moment, the purpose of tonight's training and discussion is not to make you all experts in conflicts of interest or any of the other topics we're going to cover. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to make sure you have a basic understanding of the types of things that you should keep in mind and be aware of, so that in the event an issue arises, you know to reach out and ask the question of whether you have a conflict. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have an item that's coming before you, either on the commission or the committee, that might affect property you own or is located nearby property you own, that's the time to pick up the phone and call or send an email or reach out through your staff liaison and let me know, or I'm sure that Mr. King would be happy to assist as well, although I think he seems to be gone. But you can reach out to me for sure to raise the issue so that I can walk you through the very painstaking and detailed analysis that's necessary to determine materiality. The materiality question hinges on a lot of different factors that require a detailed analysis that's very fact intensive. So if there is a project coming along that's located nearby property you own or have an interest in of $2,000 or more, give a call, send a text, send an email, reach out, and then we'll walk through the materiality analysis together. Assuming we get past the materiality question, then the next question is whether it is reasonably foreseeable that the economic interest will be materially affected. Again, this is a very fact-intensive and detailed analysis based on very complex regulations that would want to walk through with you. Again, if you think there's a chance that you have a conflict, reach out so we can go through the analysis together. Then the next question is the effect on the official's interest distinguishable from the effect on the public generally? This question is one that is referred to commonly as the public generally exception. And what that means is where a project is going to affect the city overall, and the impact on your property or your financial interest is going to be the same as the effect on many other people within the city. And the test is 10% of the residential properties within the city. If we're talking about a property effect, then it's considered an indistinguishable effect, and the exception to the conflict of interest rules identified in item 7 would come into play. So, for example, if the city was doing a road work program where we're going to repave the streets throughout the city, this would come before the city council, of course, but as an example, and it happens to be coming past the home of a council member, for example, then if it were part of a program that's affecting the entire city, then that would be part of the public generally exception, and a recusal would not be required. And then item 8, is the official's participation nonetheless legally required? That is called the rule of necessity. And you may have seen it with the council. It doesn't come up very often with regard to planning commission, and I don't know that it's ever come up with regard to Measure LC. But the short way of describing the rule of necessity is the business of the city doesn't cease to occur simply because of conflicts. So in a circumstance where, talking about the city council, so a 5-member council, if there are 3 council members who have a conflict, then we use a method of chance, usually drawing straws, to select one of the council members who will announce their conflict but participate anyway. This could also happen on the planning commission, but it's harder to get to 4 people with a conflict on the same matter that isn't in the public generally exception, and it is to get to 3. And so in that circumstance, the 2 members who are conflicted and get the long straws announce their conflict and recuse, and the official who draws the short straw announces their conflict and stays and votes. So you may have seen this come up with regard to Medical Main Street, where we have 3 council members who are conflicted, and we have used the rule of necessity to get through that issue, because otherwise the council could not act and the project couldn't go forward simply because there are 3 council members with property interests and business interests proximate to the project. As a result, one thing to keep in mind with regard to the rule of necessity is that absence or unavailability does not create necessity. It has to be actual conflict of 3 members. So if you have 2 members who are conflicted, or for the planning commission, 3 members are conflicted and 1 member is absent, that does not raise a rule of necessity circumstance, and you would have to postpone the item until you could have all the members present. So that is the 8-step test, and I have spoken a lot, and I am hopeful that some of you might have some questions that I can respond to or walk you through some things. I have more to say, but I wanted to just take a moment, see if there are any questions on the 8-step test, which is long and complicated. Hope you're still awake. Okay. If the test is met.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Yeah, Ms. Underwood has a question.
Yes.
Where do I look?
Where do you look?
It's really
Oh.
hard to talk to somebody when I can't see their face. So I'm
sorry, and I can't see yours either because you guys are all very, very small on my screen. But I am looking at you.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is there going to be a printout available of this? Because I really like to be able to read things over again.
Sure. I can provide this to the city clerk's office or to Larissa, and either of them can forward it on to you in electronic format or in paper format if that's your preference.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course. Any other questions on the 8-step test? So if you've gone through the 8-step test and determined that, okay, we have a conflict of interest, then you must publicly announce the specific financial interest and leave the room during discussion or deliberation of the matter, just like I believe it was Commissioner Harvey who did during the Planning Commission meeting just earlier tonight. She did it exactly right. Well done. Good example. She announced her conflict and left the room, I think. I couldn't actually see that part, but it sounded like she did. So good job, Cassandra. All right. Oops. So up next is additional conflict-related or ethics-related issues. It's common law conflicts. So we just went through the Fair Political Practices Act 8-step test. In addition to that, there's what are called common law conflicts, and that is a situation where a conflict arises, but it doesn't meet the exact terms of the 8-step test we just went through. And it rests on the judicially created principles that a public officer is bound to exercise their powers with disinterested skill, zeal, and diligence, and for the benefit of the public. And where there's no conflict found according to the statutory rules that we just went through, there can still be a conflict of interest when a non-financial personal interest arises. And this is what I refer to as the looks like a duck, quacks like a duck conflict of interest doctrine. If it looks like you would be conflicted where your interest in decision making would be in question, it would behoove you to err on the side of caution and follow the adage of when in doubt, step out. The meaning of that is when you're unsure about whether you have a common law conflict, remove yourself from the risk, step out of the meeting, announce your conflict, and don't participate in the item. This often comes up with regard to family members. So, for example, for planning commissioners, your adult child has an item coming before the planning commission for planning approval. Doesn't meet the financial interests identified in the 8-step test we just went through, but almost anyone looking at it would consider that a parent-child relationship is one where it would be very hard for a parent to vote no on their child's proposed project. That's a common law conflict, and I would advise step out. Any questions on common law conflicts? Form 700s, all of you and I are required to fill out annually Form 700s. Those are due. That's your Statement of Economic Interest form that you fill out for the Fair Political Practices Commission. They are due 30 days after you assume office, annually on April 1st, or the first business day after April 1st, and 30 days after leaving office. So make sure you turn those in and turn them in timely. I know the clerk's office appreciates that. Incompatible offices. Incompatible offices is a doctrine that prohibits someone from holding employment or engaging in any enterprise for compensation that is inconsistent, incompatible, or in conflict with to their official duties or the duties, functions, and responsibilities of their appointing authority. So, for example, one cannot simultaneously serve on the County Board of Supervisors and the City Council. That is an incompatible office. It's generally not, it doesn't come up a lot, but when it does, it is a circumstance where the first office is deemed abandoned upon taking the oath into the second office. So, for example, if you were on the Planning Commission, and actually this was probably a better example, you can't serve on the Planning Commission and the City Council at the same time either. because one supervises or is superior to the other and oversees appeals from the other. So if you were on the planning commission and ran for or were appointed to the city council, upon being sworn into the city council, you would be deemed to have abandoned your position on the planning commission. Any questions on incompatible offices?
I actually just have sort of a comment, Allison. And
Yeah.
it's more of a clarification. So oftentimes I'll be seen sitting on the dais as part of council, but I'm in the capacity of a housing authority director. Just for clarification, I'm not the actual council proper.
Correct.
But I just wanted to clear that up in case someone in the public had noticed otherwise.
You're sitting there in your representative capacity on behalf of the housing authority, so that you are there as a resource for the city council. You are not sitting as a city council.
Correct. I just wanted from an optics perspective to clear that up.
Sure. Yes, and I'm glad you said that, and we should make sure that your placard in front of your name or in front of your seat is clear that you're there in your capacity on behalf of the housing authority. You're also not voting on anything, but yes, you are sitting at the dais, and
Well,
I can understand.
unless there's something that's housing. So if it's housing related, so people will see me vote, but it's only in that capacity.
Right. Only in the housing authority capacity. Yeah. Any other questions? Right. The Brown Act. Okay, the Brown Act requires open meetings, and a meeting is any congregation of a majority of the members of the commission or committee at the same time in the same place to hear, discuss, or deliberate any matter under its jurisdiction. This can include serial meetings, wheeling, and technological workarounds. So group texts, emails, wheeling, which is where one person calls each member or more than half to obtain their position on an item. And serial meetings is where, so for example, for the Planning Commission, 3 members of the Planning Commission meet together, and then one of them meets with 2 more, and then another one of those meets with 2 more. That's called a serial meeting. All of those are prohibited without a noticed an agendized meeting like we're having tonight. So for tonight, we have an agenda that says that I'm going to be giving an ethics training. That is what we're doing. And the agenda requirements are that the agenda must be posted 72 hours prior to a regular meeting, 24 hours prior to a special meeting, and briefly describe the actions to be taken and matters to be considered, just like you had tonight, where each item was identified on the agenda. And actually, your agendas are far more robust than the law requires, which is great. They lay out the location, the applicant, the request, the recommended action. The law requires that the agenda listing be a general description, and a general description is generally a general description is not required to be more than 20 words. We do far more than is required. We work on transparency and make sure that the public knows exactly what it is we're doing. And so as a result, our agendas are more robust than is required, but that's okay. We're allowed to do more. We can't do less. So the with regard to our public meetings, the public has a right to attend the meetings, record the meetings, and testify at the meetings. The recording is permitted so long as it's not disruptive. So if someone comes in with a video camera and sits down quietly and holds their video camera and just records the meeting, that is perfectly fine. They are allowed to do that. If they get up and are disruptive and are moving around and getting in folks' faces or making it difficult to conduct the meeting, they can be asked to sit down and not be disruptive. And if they won't do that, they can be asked to stop videoing. If that doesn't work, they can be asked to leave. With regard to testifying at public meetings, we cannot require people to submit their names. We do ask that they do so that we can know when to call on them and know how to reach them if there's follow-up. but they're not technically required to give their actual name. They can write down, audience member 1, and as long as they know to what moniker they will be responding when the chairman calls their name, then that is fine. They do not have to actually identify themselves. Any questions on public meetings and the Brown Act requirements?
Allison, I did have a question on the number. Is that a weighted number? So with regard to us now having 7 members on the commission, does it remain static at 3, or does that number now become 4 is the no-go?
Okay, so each of you on the Planning Commission can talk with 2 other board members. So that would be a total of 3 about a particular item. If you cross over the 3, you've now hit a quorum, and that would be a violation of the Brown Act. So it's for you, you can talk with 2 others. And I don't remember how many members there are of the Measure LC Commission. Please stand by. I think there are 5 of you.
Well,
So
the Oversight Committee doesn't vote on anything, actually. So we're an advisory group, so I'm unsure how all of this applies to us.
The Brown Act does apply to the Measure LC Committee because it was formed by action of the City Council. So it does have to comply with the Brown Act, and the Measure LC Committee does have to follow the Brown Act.
I know we're obliged to have
as an advisory committee. I'm sorry?
I know we're obliged to have the training. I know we're obliged to conform to the Brown Act. But we don't vote, so I'm not sure how the economic interest impacts the LC oversight group. But maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
If you're making recommendations, then your recommendations could be affected by financial interests. So it does apply.
But the LC recommendations are citywide, similar to what you defined on road improvements, for instance.
Then, okay. So then the public generally exception may take you out of financial conflicts in every instance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Very briefly, the Public Records Act, only as it affects you. As a general matter, the Public Records Act requires the maintenance and disclosure of public records. It requires the city to retain and disclose the public records, including documents and emails in personal email accounts. So if you conduct any business on behalf of the city in your personal email accounts, and the city receives a public records request that would include records in your personal email accounts, the city clerk staff will contact you and ask you to search your personal email accounts and aver as to whether there were any responsive documents in there. That's why it is my strong recommendation that if you have a city email address, use it for any city business, not your personal email accounts, unless you want to have to search them for the city clerk's office with regard to public records requests. This one often gets a lot of questions, so I'm going to take a moment. Okay. No questions on Public Records Act. Use your city email. Don't store city-related materials in your personal account. Social media. Social media accounts that are an extension of your government position. So, for example, they list your public position with the city, provide your city contact information, discuss city issues, invite public comment on city issues, are considered an extension of your government position. And if that is determined to be the case, you cannot screen users and you cannot screen content. You cannot delete comments to your account. My recommendation, if you want to have a social media account that lists your public position and provides all of the things listed here, your city contact information, and discusses city-related issues or invites public comment on city-related issues, that you set up a separate social media account from the one on which you might post pictures of your parents or children or pets, so that you have the ability on your private personal account to screen users and content, and you can have your public account where you talk about city-related business and list your public position, discuss city-related issues, and that will be the one where screening content and screening users would not be allowed. This one often also gets lots of questions, so I'm going to take a moment.
So Allison, what's your recommendation then, not to post any information relative to those listed? For instance, indicating your public position, or a, direct contact, city email, for instance, or anything like that?
If you're only going to have one account, then I would recommend not having these things involved in it, inviting public comment
Perfect.
on city-related issues. So for planning commissioners, I would
Perfect.
not say, for example, hey, we're going to have a public hearing on thus and such big box retailer going in at the corner of Ellen 10th, and come to City Hall and make your comments known. You post that on your, for example, personal Facebook account, you've probably just turned it into an extension of your government position. If you just one of these, maybe you get away with it. This is still an evolving area. This is new. This has come into being in the last 4 years or so. The cases surrounding it are still developing. You're probably okay if you just have one of these 4 things. If you have 2, you're probably not okay. But I'm saying probably advisedly because this is an evolving area. I would stay away from all of it if you want to have just one account. So for council members, for example, I often say, go ahead and do an account, Rex Paris for mayor or Mayor Rex Paris as one account, and then, just Rex Paris or our Rex Paris for his private family stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And the important thing about not being able to screen users and content is sometimes people are mean on the internet and you want to be able to take stuff down. And so you want to make sure you don't turn your personal Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, whatever it is, into a public forum, which is what happens if you use those, list your public position with the city, provide your city contact information, discuss city issues, or invite public comment on city issues. So, and that was the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions. You guys have been really quiet. I certainly am happy to answer your questions. I'm also happy to have you send me an email or a text or otherwise reach out to me, give me a call if you have a particular issue that you want to make sure that you have the answers you need, but you don't really want to bring it up in a recorded Zoom meeting. So if you want to reach out to me directly, you are welcome to do so. And I think that's mostly what I have, unless there's additional questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes.
So I know this is still a developing area, as you say. I mean, I share things from the public city Instagram account, like, just stuff that's going on in the community. I share with my followers and things. I mean, that's not necessarily an issue, but is there a room for that to become one? You know what I mean? Like if they ask questions based on something that I share, you get what I mean?
Yeah, so I think if you're talking about, Poppy Festival is coming up, come out and join us. I think that, and you're just forwarding the city's post or liking it and forwarding it or retweeting or something like that, probably okay. If it, like I said, if you're talking about an announcement that is inviting public comment, so let me know what you think about the proposal to put the big box at the corner of Ellen 10th. That's inviting public comment on an issue that may come before you, and that's a different animal. That's much closer to turning your social media account into a public forum, which would prohibit you from being able to screen content users.
Understood, thank you. People will find any reason on the internet to be upset, so, that's why I wanted to ask.
Yes, yes, they will. Or no reason.
Yes.
And the whole purpose of keeping within the boundaries of the descriptions that you provided to us is to prevent personal risk for members of the commission, and those liabilities as well as the liabilities for the city itself, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want to make sure that we avoid even the appearance of impropriety and we protect all of you personally and the city and everyone's reputation.
And all folks that, we're not the only people that are required to abide by these rules.
Oh no, this is statewide. This is statewide. This is every public agency throughout the state is required to abide by these rules. So no, you are not alone, and we all have to work our way through these.
Very good, thank you. Any further questions or from anyone or comments? All right, well, thank you very much, Ms. Burns. We appreciate your interaction with us tonight.
Thank you. It was good to see you all, and please don't hesitate to call or email or text if you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
All right, that concludes that item, I believe. Ms. De La Cruz has some introductions tonight to share.
Yes, I have a couple. You saw the gentleman that was on the Zoom. He jumped off the call. That was David King with Best Best and Krieger, who will be serving as our legal counsel moving forward. You will see him in person at the June meeting. We have a very full June meeting and a very full July meeting. So we're actually going to take a look and prioritize some stuff so that it's not a super long night. And that we don't keep you here until late. I know some folks want to get home and have dinner, so we take that into consideration every month. But I also wanted to take a minute and introduce Patty Garibay. Patty Garibay has recently been promoted to the Assistant Director of the Planning and Permitting section, which is the section, a newly created section under the Community Development Department, which is the department that I am now the director for. The Planning and Permitting section is the Planning and Building and Safety group. So those two teams have been consolidated into one new division, and Patty has been tasked with overseeing those two groups. So we're really excited to have Patty join us. Patty brings a ton of knowledge to the table. She has 18 years working for the city of Lancaster in different capacities. She's incredibly well-rounded. She has been just amazing already in the last couple of weeks that we have asked her to step into this role, and I'm personally excited to have her here with me. She's learning the ropes. She is learning everything there is to know and is already just showing such a fantastic improvement in the operations. She is diving in. Last week she was out in the field with the inspectors. So she's getting her feet wet and her hands dirty, and we are really happy to have her. So wanted to welcome her tonight.
Oh, great, welcome. Would you like to share anything with us tonight? I know you're shaking your head no, but please do.
It's the red one. Oh, there we go. I just wanted to let everybody know I'm super excited to work with everybody. And, you know, as Larissa mentioned, I have been at the city now for 18 years, so I have a pretty diverse background, but I've been fortunate enough to work with planning in a lot of different capacities and over the years. So I'm really excited to dive a little deeper, to get to know all of you a lot better, and just to, you know, help continue moving things forward here at the city. So I'm excited to work with you all, and thank you.
And you're a very nice person.
Oh, thank you.
Certainly been my experience with you for many years. And we certainly are pleased to have you join our group, or you or us join your group. I'm not sure which.
Thank you, Chairman Bose.
I actually, we've worked with her for about 14 years, Jim, you and I,
Yeah.
of that 18. presenting to us, so well-deserved promotion. Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yep. And we have another staff member.
We do, we do. With all of the reorganization changes, we are cross-training several of our staff to be equipped to help when we need some help. I sound like a broken record, but I'm thinking about succession planning and just how do we help each other and how do we cover for one another. And I joke that if I get eaten by a bear out camping, you know, that we need to be able to sustain the operations. And Sandra Moreno is here to my right, and she is part of our admin staff. She is observing and learning the operations of how to run the planning commission meeting in the event that we let Heather take a vacation. She can step right in and assist and know who you all are and the importance of the meeting, and she's also doing a fantastic job. So just wanted to show who she is as well.
Welcome, Ms. Moreno.
And that's all, other than we have a very full agendas moving forward, but we're excited. And I'm not going anywhere just yet. I am committed to helping have a smooth transition, and I'll still be here for a while. So happy to be here.
All right, very good. Okay. Ms. Harvey will be chairing the June meeting, so make it easy for her. That's what she told me to say. You guys will do what you want, like you always do, and, you know, somebody's got to run the show, right? All right, then, well, thank you. Any other announcements you care to make, Ms. De La Cruz?
None. That's
None?
all I had. Thank you.
All right. Our LC members, Jeff? Nice to see you again, and look forward to seeing you in the future. Anything from the members tonight? None? Okay, then. So that concludes our action items and presentations. This will be time for public business from the floor. I do not see anyone in attendance from the public, so we can move right on then to adjournment, which will be for a special meeting on June 12th, 2023 at 5 p.m. here in these chambers. So with that, we're adjourned, and thank you all for everything you've done tonight. And welcome to the new folks. I can say new folks one time.